Laudetur Jesus Christus, Vatican and World News.
Today, Tuesday, January 5th, is the feast of St. John Neumann, Bishop of Philadelphia in the United States. And these are today's headlines. The Holy See Press Office has announced that Pope Francis will not be baptizing children as he normally would on the Sunday of the Baptism of the Lord. The Church in Argentina renews its commitment to care for all human life after the nation's parliament voted to legalize abortion. And voters in the U.S. state of Georgia head to the polls in an election that will determine control of the United States Senate. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells. Our top story today from the Vatican, the Holy See Press Office has announced that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Pope Francis will not be baptizing children as he would normally do on the Sunday of the Baptism of the Lord this coming Sunday. Due to the health situation, as a precautionary measure, the press office said in a statement, the traditional baptism of children presided over by the Holy Father in the Sistine Chapel on the Sunday of the Baptism of the Lord will not be celebrated this year. However, the statement adds, the children who would have been baptized by the Pope will still receive the sacrament, but in their own respective parishes. Also today from the Vatican, the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity and the Lutheran World Federation recently announced the publication of the updated Italian translation of the historic ecumenical document entitled The Joint Declaration on the Doctrine of Justification. A post on the Pontifical Council's website notes that by launching the updated document on January 3rd, the 500th anniversary of the excommunication of Martin Luther, both the Lutheran World Federation and the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity are underscoring their commitment to walk together on their common journey from conflict to communion. The English version of the Joint Declaration on the Doctrine of Justification, with other important dialogue documents, can be found on the website of the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity, www.christianunity.va. Once again, that's www.christianunity.va. Turning now to world news, Argentina's Congress on December 30th of 2020 approved an historic bill to legalize abortion in the largely Catholic country. Though dismayed, the Church in Argentina vowed to continue its commitment in the service of every human life, including the lives of unborn children. Robin Gomes has more on that story.
The Catholic Church in Argentina wants to reaffirm, together with brothers and sisters of different faiths and also with many non-believers, that it will continue working with firmness and passion in the care and service of life, said a press release by the Episcopal Conference of Argentina, issued soon after the 30th December vote. The bishops pointed out that the law will further deepen the divisions in the country and expressed deep regret that the country's leadership ignored the feelings of the people who have expressed themselves in various ways in favor of life. After a marathon session, the Senate approved the abortion law with 38 votes in favor, 29 against, and an abstention. The bill had been approved earlier on 11th December by the Chamber of Deputies. Previously, abortion was only allowed if the woman had been raped or her life was in danger. Argentina thus becomes one of the very few countries in Latin America where abortion is permitted up to the 14th week of pregnancy. It was Argentina's massive Green Wave women's movement that has been the driving force behind the call for the abortion law, overturning the previous law that had been in place since 1921. Despite the new law, the Argentinian bishops pledged to continue working on the authentic priorities that deserve urgent action. These issues include an alarming number of children living in poverty, many of whom are dropping out of school, and the urgent pandemic of hunger and unemployment. The bishops concluded saying they embrace every Argentinian, including the MPs and senators who courageously stand up for life. If we always protect life without giving up, this will allow us to build a nation in the future where no one is discarded and where a true culture of encounter can be experienced, the Argentinian bishop said. I am Robin Gomes.
Elsewhere in the Americas, residents of the U.S. state of Georgia are voting today, Tuesday, in 2 Senate runoff races, which will determine the balance of power in the U.S. Congress. The elections come after an intense round of campaigning, as Devin Watkins reports.
Voters in Georgia returned to the polls on Tuesday to cast ballots in a pair of Senate runoff races. Campaigning by both Republicans and Democrats has been fierce in the past weeks. The result will determine which party controls the upper house of Congress. If the Democratic candidates win both races, the Senate will be equally split 50-50, with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris providing a tie-breaking vote in the party's favor. If Republicans win either seat, they will control the Senate. Democrats already hold a narrow majority in the House of Representatives. Georgia's runoff race will also determine the capacity of President-elect Joe Biden, a Democrat, to enact the legislation and have high-level government posts confirmed. Many cabinet positions and judicial nominees require Senate confirmation. The Republican candidates in Tuesday's election are Senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, who currently hold Georgia's 2 Senate seats. They face Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, respectively. No candidate received 50% of the vote in November required by the state's election laws. Mr. Perdue fell just short of that amount, taking 49.7%. Mr. Warnock received nearly 33% against Ms. Loeffler's almost 26%, since there were more contenders for the seat. Democrats have not won a Senate race in Georgia in 20 years. This young voter explains why it's important to participate in American democracy.
Our ancestors fought and died for us to vote in the first place, so it's almost like a crime for me and just who I stand for if I don't go out and vote.
Polls opened early Tuesday morning, though around 3 million ballots have already been cast in early in-person voting and mail-in ballots. The winners are unlikely to be announced soon after polls close on Tuesday. Election officials cannot start counting votes until after all ballots are cast. I'm Devin Watkins.
Turning now to the Middle East, Gulf leaders have signed a document at a summit in Saudi Arabia aimed at resolving a dispute between several countries and Qatar. Nathan Morley has the latest on that story.
The Emir of Qatar is in Saudi Arabia to attend a Gulf Cooperation Council summit, which will end a rift which ruptured the Arab world and has tested U.S. diplomacy since 2017. On Monday, Saudi Arabia reopened its borders and airspace to Qatar after boycotting it for the last 3 years. 4 countries, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Egypt, blockaded Qatar, accusing its leaders of supporting terrorism and Islamists in the region and of getting too close to the Iranian government. The embargo weakened unity amongst Gulf countries as tensions with the biggest regional rival Iran have risen. The main mediation efforts appear to have been led by Kuwait, but it's understood that the Trump administration in Washington wants its share of the credit for the breakthrough. Now, the Kuwaiti Emir and the Qatari Emir and Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince have confirmed their intention to start a new beginning in their relations. Just last week, the Kuwaiti Emir expressed his optimism for the summit, telling local media that it would bring together the leaders of the GCC countries, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and strengthen their brotherhood and solidarity against the many challenges in the region. For Vatican News, this is Nathan Morley reporting.
Also from the Middle East, the United States imposed fresh Iran-related sanctions targeting the steel sector on Tuesday. That's according to the Treasury Department of the United States website. They are now continuing to increase pressure on Tehran in the final weeks of Donald Trump's presidency. Washington blacklisted more than a dozen entities and one person, according to the website. Elsewhere, hundreds of migrants and refugees are at serious risk and at the mercy of worsening weather conditions in inadequate shelters amid the lack of political consensus in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Linda Bordoni has this report.
The Italian branch of Caritas and other humanitarian agencies are warning of a looming humanitarian catastrophe for migrants and refugees stranded without worthy housing conditions in freezing weather in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Caritas Italiana says the already precarious situation of the migrants and refugees whose camp burnt down on the 23rd of December could further worsen due to rigid winter conditions and continuous transfers from one camp to another. The burnt facility, Lipa Camp, on the border with Croatia, was home to almost 1,000 men, women and children seeking to enter Europe. But with no running water, electricity or heating in sub-zero temperatures, it lacked the minimum conditions for a dignified survival. A lack of consensus within the divided government of Bosnia-Herzegovina with its decentralized state governance structures, coupled with protests by local residents, has resulted in the migrants being shifted to and fro on buses and ultimately being taken back to Lipa Camp, where the army has put up new tents. But these are placed directly on the icy ground without flooring or bedding. Fears that the tense and inhumane situation could lead to violence have already proved founded, with incidents of fighting and one person stabbed. The European Commission and other observers are calling on authorities to urgently take an institutional initiative and provide adequate reception facilities to those who are risking their health and their lives. The EU Commission denounced the situation, saying the migrants are being used as internal political pawns. Rough estimates suggest some 70,000 people have arrived in Bosnia-Herzegovina since early 2018. The vast majority have since entered the European Union, leaving behind up to 8,500 people. I'm Linda Bordoni.
Elsewhere, 3 men died in a boat carrying more than 40 migrants, and another died upon reaching shore on Tenerife in Spain's Canary Islands on Tuesday, according to authorities. They were the first deaths of migrants arriving on the islands in 2021, a spokeswoman for the emergency services said. Meanwhile, an armed conflict has been raging in eastern Ukraine for almost 7 years. In that time, more than 13,000 people have been killed, 30,000 more have been wounded, and almost 1.5 million have been internally displaced. As the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, with other Eastern Catholic churches, approaches Christmas celebrations on January 7th, the head of the UGCC, Major Archbishop of Kiev, Sviatoslav Shevchuk, spoke with Vatican Radio about the conflict and about his hopes for peace as we enter the new year.
Well, always the nativity of our Lord is linked with the expectation of the universal peace. And we, in a special way, are praying for a peace in our country, in our nation. But contemplating the newborn child Christ, we listen also the words of prophet Isaiah, which is saying that there is no peace without truth and justice. In order to be able to receive this divine peace which Christ is bringing with him from heaven, we have to be witnesses to the truth, but also we have to be the constructor of the authentic justice. Social justice, a justice in our relationships with our neighbors, a justice as a foundation of the universal human society, universal human family. So we are praying for peace, but we have to work hard in order to give witness to the truth and to cooperate, to be the constructors of the authentic justice in our world.
That was Major Archbishop Sviatoslav, and that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells.